Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Cowgirl Blues Weekly Wednesday Zoom class with Jane Renton. Over to you, Jane.
So this week, welcome everyone. And after last week's discussion on big needles and lacy knitting, I decided to play a bit and pulled out my number 8s for the first time ever. And I took some of the lace. I think this is called Carnival.
Yes, Cape Carnival.
And I decided to play. So this is a start of a shawl. And can you see how lacy it looks without even having done anything to it? I think I need something dark behind it for you to see properly. No, I haven't got, oh, there we are. I've got the inside of a book. So yes. There we are. Now you can see. See how lacy it looks?
Yeah.
And imagine that as a shawl. I think it could be quite lovely. Especially for this time of year where you're needing just a little bit of warmth and not a densely knitted warmth around your neck. And I think it will work both in Europe and here at this season. And I've shaped it. And if you want the pattern for this, I'll give it to Bridget. It's really, really simple. You decrease on one side and decrease in 2 rows, at least on both the right side and wrong side row on the other side. And it gives you the shaping. And you can already see it's starting to curve that side and curve here. And there's lace without any effort at all.
That looks pretty, Jane.
And it feels so nice and fragile. It's lovely. So I think I might be ordering one whole skein of this.
That was just a little sample test.
This was my sample test.
Yeah.
And one skein will be sufficient with this sort of knit to make a complete scarf that will be able to wrap around your neck a couple of times, or even to hang loosely around your neck with the tails hanging. I'm quite sold on this. So yes, you might just need your big needles in your kit. So do you remember as well, a couple of weeks ago, we were doing increases and decreases, and how the increase and decrease, depending on how you knit it, how it affects the direction of your stitch. So when you do lace work, that is vitally important, because as you can see here, I've done a decrease that side and a decrease that side. And without that, you wouldn't get that perfect shaping. Nor would you get the effect of these lines zigzagging if I weren't careful with the direction I decreased my stitches. So lace knitting is all about decreasing stitches and then increasing the stitch with a yarn over. And the yarn over is what creates these holes. And if you remember when we were doing the decreases, when you want your stitch to lie to the left, as on this side, then you're going to do either an SSK, which is a slip, slip, and knit, the 2 stitches together, or you slip one, knit one, and pass your slip stitch over. Both of those stitches or types of decreases will give you a left-leaning stitch. For the right-leaning stitch, it's just simply a knit 2 together. And I'm very happy with the way that looks. and it's just a simple yarn over. So for this stitch, and I generally prefer to work with a chart. So for this first part, I'm wanting to increase. So I'm not going to be doing any decreasing. I'm just simply a yarn over. And to do the yarn over, my next stitch is a knit stitch. So I'm just bringing my needle, at least my yarn, forward, and I'm going to knit. And there's my yarn over with my hole created.
Jane, you're a bit far to the right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And you're going really fast with your yarn over. I'm like, just slow it down.
I'm going to do another one.
It's like I saw you yarn over from the back or from the front. Yeah.
Okay, so yarn over. I've done a knit stitch, a yarn over.
Yeah.
What I'm doing is bringing the yarn in front of my work. Did you see that?
Yeah. Okay, because you're purling.
And now my next two stitches, I'm going to want to knit them together, but I'm wanting a left leaning stitch. So I slip one, knit one, pass my slip stitch over, and you can see my yarn over that's created a hole.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to do a yarn over again. I bring my yarn to the front of my work, and I slip one, knit two together, and there's my yarn over again.
Yeah, so that second one on the right is your yarn over. Am I seeing that right? Yeah.
So yarn over, slip one.
So that's a yarn over. Okay.
And bring it over, and I've got my yarn over.
So Roxana, you can tell it's a yarn over by the little hole that's underneath it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out how it is a yarn over, because you knit it and then you bring your yarn to the front, and that creates a yarn over. Or so
you bring your yarn to the front, and by knitting the next stitch without taking the stitch back to the back of the work, it's going over the needle. So it's a yarn over the needle.
Okay, it automatically creates it. Yeah, okay.
Okay. And generally with lace work, your wrong side is just straight across purl. With no fancy stitches, absolutely nothing. We just purl. When we get to the yarn over, we purl it as if it were a normal stitch.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do that again. There's my yarn over.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to put my needle in and knit it or purl it as if it were a normal stitch. And again, my yarn over. And purl it as if it's a normal stitch.
And did we increase now and create gaps? Is that what you just did?
So by increasing, with the lace, to create the stitches, you need to have a hole. But to create a hole without having the work increase exponentially, you need to decrease. So you decrease and then a yarn over. What has just happened?
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm getting it now. So you're decreasing by knitting the two together, or what you did, and then in between comes a yarn over to create the hole. Yes. Okay, I'm getting it. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
See, you just say like it's just knitting and yarning over, and it's so simple, but it's for us it's hectic maths here. My brain is trying to comprehend all of this.
Okay, so if you look here, sorry, my camera's unzoomed itself, and I don't know. And it always plays up when I try and rezoom it.
That's okay. Let's take a minute to resume, because it's quite difficult to see otherwise.
Yeah. Okay.
Here we go.
No. it's not doing this. It's not behaving.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
There we go. Okay, so I'm wanting my work to stay the same size. So with every decrease, there's a yarn over, and therefore with every yarn over, there's a decrease. Okay. And I really like how that looks.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Another question. Well, as we're looking at it now, so on the left-hand side, you still do the first stitch as a slip stitch, right? So it's a nice side. Yeah. But on the what we're doing now on the right-hand side, do you also do the slip stitch first?
Yes.
Yeah, also. Doesn't matter what you do.
If I turn my work here, you can see that it's got a neat edge. Every stitch at the beginning has been slipped.
Yeah, okay, this you always do. It doesn't matter what pattern you're doing or what.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time I slipped my first stitch on every row. It doesn't matter what I'm knitting. Okay, so now I'm just going to cast this off because I want to show you, you asked about blocking your work. So I'm going to block this so that you can see what I do with when I've blocked.
And then, can you send through the pattern for this specific little thing that you were making?
This little pattern. The pattern for this is going to be with the knit along that we're going to be doing in November, is it, Bridget?
November. Yeah. Yeah, but it's September now.
Not for long. Not for long. It's very nearly October.
I want to do it now. I'm going to be on holiday for 10 days.
Enjoy your holiday. So
okay, I get the hint.
So what you can do is get yourself a skein of variegated lace yarn from Cowgirlblues and knit yourself a shawl with large needles for this lacy effect. And this pattern I'll be sending to Bridget today so she can put it in her newsletter tomorrow.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And yeah.
I'm not seeing equal enthusiasm from Roxana, but
well, actually, I'll show you now because I've got my own little lacy project going already for a while. This is the top of the
okay. Hold on one
the
second.
sweater that I'm making.
Hold on, we're going to spotlight you. Okay, hold it out again.
Like, let me just first show you. This is the merino lace.
Yes, merino lace. Beautiful. Yes.
And so I've got 3 colors, so it's going to be all mixed. Here we go. So this is what I started with, and it's the top of a lacy shirt. So what I'm doing is also sort of similar.
With Roxanne,
with my what?
You need to go slower. No, Roxanne, stop a minute. You need to go a bit slower.
I'm stopping. It's going slower.
It's all blurred.
Hold it still.
Oh,
yes. Okay.
Wow.
That's lovely.
So this is what it looks like.
Amazing.
It's with a big hook.
Yes.
Number 5, 4, 4. So I also thought I would use a big hook with a small lace, and then you get this very stretchy, lacy look.
Very
and
nice.
yeah, so it's the first time I attempted the pattern, which is so this is going to be the end result.
Oh, lovely.
But then obviously much more lacy because it's much thinner. So I'm working with all this. So, but I'm too scared to continue because I need to figure out where I was. So it's been lying around for like a year. But now is the time to finish it. So because the summer is coming, hopefully, and then I can maybe finally wear it. So yeah, but it's going to be nice. But it's so easy to crochet. I was very scared of lace because it's thin, but it's so easy to work with because it doesn't split, and you just keep going. It's actually really lovely. So in the waitings of the pattern for your lace with knitting, I will be finishing this hopefully then.
Good.
So thank you, Jane, for motivating me. I seem to have a purple theme going on in my house, I must say.
Yes.
Yeah.
You do.
Okay, so yeah. No,
okay. So something else you also asked for last week is about blocking your work. So what I do when I block is I have my bowl of water.
Yeah.
I have my bowl of water, and I take whatever it is that I'm going to block, and it goes into the water. Let me tip this a bit so you can see what I'm doing there. And it goes into the water so that it is sodden, really, really nice and wet. If it's a project I've been working on for quite a while, then what I do is I actually wash it. And the soap that I use is a delicate soap. I don't know if you can still get wool out.
Yes, I think you can.
yes,
so
you can.
Okay, so wool out works really well. Another product that I use is from Amway. It's for delicates, and I find that works really, really nicely. And then I wash it and rinse it, and if it's a project where I've mixed my colors, very much like in this one, then I will add one of these pieces of paper to my, it's just papers, but they've got a special chemical on them, which take the color onto the paper instead of taking the color from the orange to the white or something like that. I have pre-tested these colors and they're not going to run, so I haven't needed to use it here. But I've got boxes and boxes of these because they work so really well. And I use for my quilting, for my knitting, for any fabric or yarn that I put that in. Then what I do is I take a towel and take out my piece. And as I say, this applies to whether I'm just doing a square as I've got here or anything up to a cardigan. I then lay it on the towel and I roll my towel up. And what I do then is I put it on the floor and I stand on it so that all the water from, or not all, but a lot of the water is then absorbed in the towel. So I'm not standing on it right now, but anyway. And then what I have is a polystyrene board, and I've got more than one of these, and they're different sizes. And I've got a grid pattern drawn on the polystyrene, and then I've covered the board with Loomtex. It's a polyester batting. And I undo my block, and I know that this block needs to be a 20 centimeter block. So with my markings and my pins, so I move my water away from my computer, that could be a disaster. I will take my block and pin it. I need to move it over one, sorry. And I know this block needs to be a 20 centimeter block. And each of these needs to be 10 centimeters. So at 10 centimeters, I put in my pin. And I am going to stretch this a bit. And because this is on the bias, I've done this as a mitered square. You can see here I've got my mitered squares. Mitered squares stretch. They also pull in a lot. So by stretching this out, I'm not actually destroying any of my work because it is done on the bias. And also being done on the bias, you can see by this block how everything is pulled in. So I'm wanting it to be nicely flattened out. So I will take this to the 20 centimeter mark and pull this down and this down. Now if I leave it like this, I haven't done a very good job of blocking it because you can see I've still got lots of curves. So I want everything to be pulled straight. So I'm just going to put this flat and I use lots and lots of pins. Rather too many than not enough. And if I'm doing a shawl, then I do this same thing, but my design wool for quilting is 3 meters by 2.5 meters. So I'll put my shawl onto that in this same way. So far I've done 2 sides, and can you see how it's pulling everything straight? So if I carry on going on the other side, the knitting will tend to bounce back a little bit. It is wool. Cotton doesn't. So you need to be aware of when you're working with cotton, that if you're going to stretch out your cotton, it's going to stay that way. And sometimes it may be that that's what you want. Other times it might not be. So you can see I do stretch this out quite a lot. And being wool, it does bounce back a bit.
So Jane, when you say it bounces back a bit, does it bounce back? So before you pinned those last 2 sides, you had a big curve in your squares. When you say it bounces back, does the whole piece bounce back as in it maintains its shape, it just gets smaller? Or will it bounce back to those curves that you had before?
I'm going to show you one now.
Okay.
So here's a mitered square.
Yep.
And you can see that everything is pretty much straight.
Yeah.
Even this section. So this was also pulled like this.
Yep.
But it's pretty straight. And you can see how it has bounced back a bit.
Okay.
But
so
it's maintained.
Sorry, it's shrinking a little bit because the moisture's gone, but it's maintaining the shape that you've pinned it in.
Well, and not just that. Wool has it has a I don't know what you really call it, a bounce, a stretch, whatever. So when it's dry, it will pull back in.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that are really nice about working with wool.
Yeah. It's the crimp in the actual fiber that gives it the elasticity that it does that.
Yes. So it doesn't return to its original distortion, as we saw particularly on the orange one. It keeps its straightness, but it keeps the shape that you set it in.
And so you are comfortable with stretching it a little as you are pinning it to block it. That isn't going to create problems for the wool. It's not like you need to sort of not pull it too much as you're shaping it. You don't need to worry about that.
So it all depends on what I'm doing. Okay, so here I've got my lace bits, and I'm wanting the holes of the lace to stand out. So I will stretch that. If I didn't, then the holes get lost. So if we look at this piece, the holes are there, but until I stretch it out, not only is this point not going to be
Pointy.
Pointy, things get a bit lost. So I'm going to just wet this piece, and I've dropped my towel on the floor. And with this piece, I didn't take any measurements, so I don't know how long it's meant to be. But because I've got an edge where it's straight knit, what I'm going to do is keep that edge straight, and then from there, I'll stretch out the other side to match it. Okay, so you can see how the lace is pulled in when the side, which is just straight knitting where there's no increases or decreases, I've kept that straight without stretching it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to bring this piece down. So I've pulled it into a rectangle. Okay, and in doing so, I've lost my points. So now what I need to do is pull out my points. And can you see now that there's actually a hole on the point, which is why you need to pull out your points. Can you see how much better that lace looks, having been stretched out?
Yeah, it really highlights the difference.
At the shaping of it all, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what happens now is when this piece is dry, it will be pulled in a bit because that's what wool does, but my points are going to stay. So the wool won't curl up again. Yeah. It stays nice and flat. So there is another way of blocking your wool, blocking your work, and that is with a steam iron and a damp cloth over your work. The only thing with doing that is you can't shape it. So you're not able to then shape your lace in particular, because you can't, there's no ways of holding those points while you iron. It's just not possible unless you're going to burn your fingers. So I'm fortunate to have this really big design wool, and the shawl that I've done, which is on its way to you, Bridget, by the way.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
I was able to put the shawl up on my design wool and pull out each one of these points so that it stays pointed. Yeah. The other way of doing it is, if you haven't got a design wool where you can pin big pieces, is you take those aluminium rods that go into blinds. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It's a thin aluminium rod, and you can get them up to, I think, 3 meters long from any curtain shop. And you take that, and in this hole on each of the points, you thread the rod. So you would have the whole lace section threaded through with the rod, threaded through each one of them all the way along and pulled out. And then you could steam it with a rod holding everything in place. So that's the blocking. Oh, what I didn't say as well is when I'm blocking cable, cable has its own texture. And if I stretch that, I lose some of that texture. So when I'm blocking cable, I don't iron it and I don't stretch it. I place it on my board wet without having stretched it. because I want to keep that texture and I want to keep the definition of the pattern. So cable is one piece. It's one technique of knitting which I don't stretch. I'm just going to look through my other pieces I've got here, which I don't stretch them all otherwise. I stretch out all my work. The other thing with blocking, what it does is, can you see this? Can you see how rough the knit looks? You can see the stitches and it's quite rough looking. Yeah. When you block it, that roughness smooths out. And this is also a ferrule, as the previous block was, but the stitches are more even.
Yeah, the
and it's not
settles the different threads together.
Yes.
And gives you a much smoother finish.
Absolutely, that's exactly what it does. So that's all I have for today, unless there are any questions.
Yeah. So go for it, ma'am.
I was just going to say, some of my knitting friends use those children's sort of play mats. You get them thick rubber ones.
Yes.
Go on the floor, and if they haven't got anything else big enough, they use those for blocking jerseys and things. Yeah.
Yes.
You can buy them at the crazy store or wherever. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The only thing with those is they've always got a design in the middle, or a number or a letter or something in the middle, and those tend to drop out.
Okay.
And polystyrene is really cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's easy enough to take your sheet of polystyrene and store it behind some cupboards or behind the drawers or something. Yeah. Or behind your bed, yes, or under your bed.
Under the bed.
Yeah, the polystyrene is really cheap.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jane, the batting over your polystyrene, how did you attach it to each other?
Pins.
I don't know. Oh, right. Okay.
I got pins, and they're the normal pins that I've been using on the front, except they're the ones just with the bubble.
Yes.
And they've gone in diagonally. So if I pull one out, can you see it? It's just a long pin, but it goes in diagonally, so it doesn't stick through to the front.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Jane,
that's how easy it is.
Jane, I'm just making a little baby's jersey.
Yes.
And I will block it to the size of the pattern. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. So with a jersey, especially a baby's jersey, I'll put it on my board the size it needs to be, and I'll put a face cloth or a towel inside it, and then button it up.
Okay.
And then make sure it's, and I pin it. But I don't stretch it, because you don't want to end up with little pin marks. The other thing you can do is, as it's drying, you just move the pins, and then any little scallops that there are, they go away. So you can see it disappears.
This blocking process is very much when I'm doing my bobbin lace.
Yes.
The pin holds the lace.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll pull it up beautifully so that it shows everything up much better. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask Jane, or some show and tells that they want to show us what they've been working on?
This is the little, I don't know where to show.
Oh, very lacy.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
Sue, hold on a second. I'm going to, won't you hold it up sort of in front of your face, then we can see it. Oh, beautiful. That's a lovely pattern.
Yeah.
That is
Nice.
lovely.
Very nice.
What I must show you is what I've got this morning.
That is very cute.
That is cute.
These are little bags for knitting. So these are supposed to be fantastic for socks this size.
Yeah, all the puffins with their jerseys on.
Very cute.
I thought you were going to say it was tapestry and you were going to...
No, the other one's got a little sheep on it.
Oh, lovely.
Sweet. Yeah.
Kelly, how are your work in progress completions going?
Slowly getting there.
Yes.
I'm still busy with this, which is in your merino twist.
Yes, that's looking
Quite
good.
large, so it's ongoing. And I was busy with a test knit for someone, but the pattern isn't, it's causing problems. I was racing to get that done, but there are problems in the pattern, so I've not managed to finish anything. So.
And has
Slowly, you're making progress on reducing that big stack.
Very, very slowly. I'm putting an effort in. Yeah.
Good for you.
So Kelly, did the pattern have errors in it? Is that the problem?
Yes, it's got errors in it, and because she's doing it through Dropbox,
yes.
I'm sending a message saying the stitch count is wrong, and it's taking 2 or 3 days for her to get back to me. So it's. I could work out myself what to do, but it's her pattern, so I can't. So it's a bit irritating, but anyway. at least it's ironing out the problems that there are there. So when it does get published, it should be error-free, hopefully.
That's the purpose of a test knitter.
Yeah.
So Bridget, we've got a test knitter.
Pardon? Yes, I know. I was just thinking, a note to self. Yes, Kelly is definitely someone who can do some test knitting for us at some point.
I'm very
keen. Okay, great. Yeah.
I mean, are you willing to do that?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Are you willing to be a test knitter for us?
Absolutely. Yes.
Fantastic.
Because there hopefully would be better communication when there are problems, and I haven't got to wait 5 days to get a reply.
No, WhatsApp works.
Exactly. It takes all the momentum out. You want to get finished, you want to move on to the next bit, and it's a lovely pattern with lots of different stitch elements in it, but I'm getting irritated with it.
Sounds like it.
I listened to them interviewing, I think, Isabel Kramer, and she said she has about 20 test knitters, but when they've been doing it for a long time, she changes them because they get to know how she's thinking, and they're not coming at it with fresh eyes. So after a while, she changes them and gets people who are not accustomed to her patterns, because they'll pick up things that the others would just, fix because they know how she thinks. Just quite interesting.
That is an interesting point, yes.
Yeah.
Nice. So I have a finished object to show you. I will take my headphones off. There is a bit of... But I finished my good Karma shawl.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to just turn it so that I've got some more space to move away and show you. But yes, here's my...
Oh, okay.
I'm going to just spotlight that as well. Yes, so there's my shawl.
Okay.
And
lovely. Did you knit from one side through to the other?
Yes, so you start
and from one point to the next point.
Yes, you start at this end and do this section, and then just the little that piece there, and then it's got a sort of sloping curve
Okay.
on that side, and then when I put it on, yeah, it's got a little strap on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's quite a nice quick knit, and it uses 3 different yarn weights so that you get the textural differences.
Okay.
I'm pleased with how it turned out, and I sort of showed it at the Vogue Knitting Live thing last weekend, so it was still on my knitting needles on Thursday, and I finished it up for the Friday session. Yeah, and so we got a couple of people who ordered the knit kits, which is great.
Fantastic.
And it's a nice way just to try out some of the different yarns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was that your pattern?
Yes, yes.
Well done.
I'm sticking to shawls for now, Jane. I have not given up on I've done some swatching for my steeking jersey project.
Yes.
So we will definitely get onto that at some point.
We certainly can.
And I am I've started doing some swatches for the 2-color rib, and I'm going to do a beanie and cowl pattern in the 2-color rib.
Okay.
Yeah, so
great.
That's been fun.
Good.
Yeah.
Bridget, what's the pattern that you're going to be steeking?
I will talk amongst yourselves, and I'll run and get my existing jersey that I want to do.
So, Margaret, what are you busy knitting?
I'm knitting a cable beanie.
Okay.
It's in variegated wool, but it's one of the it isn't quite 100 grams. So Bridget gave it to me, and I felt like practicing cables, so I'm making a cable beanie. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's pretty wool. Yeah.
Yeah. Because your stitches are big enough, the variegation, at least the cabling, is showing up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm knitting a jersey for somebody else, for Janine. I think you know Janine.
Oh, yes. Yeah, she's joined us before.
Yeah, and it's a neck down, and she wanted the armholes made deeper, which I did. But that's messed up the sleeves because
it would.
I couldn't. So yeah, I knitted one sleeve and realized it wouldn't work. So I had to do the decreasing much quicker to get the size down properly. You know? Yeah. So it's a bit of an up and down project with a lot of pulling out.
I'm recently kind. Not
sorry.
Those are my favorite kind. Not
for anyone. Okay. Yes.
So Kelly, this is the sorry, let me just spotlight this for a sec. So this is the jersey that I've got. I'm just going to tip this down a little so you can see. So it's sort of a top-down kind of sleeveless knit. I mean, it's nothing, it's not super shapy or anything. And Jane and I talked about it, and it's one of my favorite jerseys. I like sleeveless, but I also like the fact that it covers my shoulders. And so I want to experiment with creating a knitting pattern for it. And Jane said, be brave, and she will help me with the steeking process. So I'll knit it top down and then steek it.
Exciting.
Yeah, it is. Terrifying also. So I have been, I've been just knitting some swatches. I think we're going to do it in the merino twist with 2 colors mold together, and see see what happens. So I need to do some measurements and get cracking. I have been procrastinating a little. I will compare.
You can't see you can't see the board on the wall here, but it says procrastination is fear. You got to feel the fear and do it anyway. So
thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Jane, for hosting another great class. And we look forward to having you back again next week.